Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. All right, you guys, I am so honored to have this next guest on, as she and I have connected on her podcast, Beyond the Bikini Radio. So you may recognize her voice, and now I'm excited to have her on my podcast for the Coaches series. She has been online coaching competitors and lifestyle clients full-time since 2018 with her degree in exercise science and a personal training certification. She's done over 18 NPC bikini competitions herself and is on a mission to support clients in their journey to the stage, weight training, habits, and mental health, which I love. Welcome to the show, Nicole Ferrier. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. I know it's been a minute since we recorded, but it's awesome to be on your show.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you. And I want to get right into it and just give everyone kind of a heads up. We're going to go through a series of questions that I'm going to be asking all the coaches. We'll kind of dig from there based on things that come up specific to you and your approach. And then we'll get into a hypothetical round of questions and then a rapid fire round of questions. Okay?
Perfect.
Cool. So let's start off by let's go over your coaching philosophy. How would you summarize it?
Yeah, I would say that my coaching philosophy, I really try to focus on educating my clients alongside with support them mentally along the journey. So, although you might have physique-based goals, I want to make sure that we are mentally there too, and that we have a good relationship with food, your body, and the gym. So, my philosophy, I think, just focuses a lot more on mindset. And I do talk about mental health quite a bit.
Yes, and I appreciate that about you and love that. I think that's why, we connect so deeply and we can resonate with each other's posts and mission because they're so aligned. And, something that I loved talking about with some of the last coaches on the last coaching series was the mental and physical and even emotional toll coaching can take on them. So on the coach themselves. So how do you handle these types of demands that come with being a coach to competitors and lifestyle clients, supporting them in these realms?
Yeah. That's such a good question. I've actually never been asked that before. Coaching, I love it, but it can be very emotional. I mean, if something is going on in my client's life, I feel the effects too. And like even if a client's family member is sick or if something tragic happens, like I feel it too. And I do let myself cry when I need to because I am very connected to my girls. But I think what really helps me emotionally is just being able to talk about it with other online coaches. I'm super close to Sarah Bishop, and she's an online coach here in Florida. And, we talk about things just to make sure that we can support each other because we're human too. And it's a job. It's definitely a job to support others, but it's totally worth it.
Absolutely. I love that you shared that and that you can, of course, lean on other people too. And you mentioned, you take a major emphasis on the mindset in your clients and setting them up for success through education. And I would love if you could impart like your personal top 3 recommendations for someone who maybe tells you they don't want to eat as much as you're encouraging them to eat on their plan, because I know you do emphasize relationship with food and their body, and I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. If you have a bad relationship with food, it's not going to be fixed with dieting. You're just kind of suppressing getting better and suppressing these fears that you have around food. So you have to kind of let go of that like shield that you have up of like being protective about yourself and these fears that you have, and you have to let go and you have to embrace it. It's so much easier when you can embrace the process and let go of these food rules. And I think the other thing is recognizing to chase your fitness goals is you don't always have to be dieting and losing weight. Reverse dieting is a part of the process. So if you want to get stronger, if you want to build muscle, if you want to improve your hormonal health, you can't really do those things when you're dieting and trying to be as small as possible.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is the truth. Especially as natural athletes, I think that's really important too when it comes to the competitor world. So, what's your take on, like, well, actually, let me go back to the food relationship part, then we'll get into that, because you had your own experiences and struggles with food and exercise, and I'd love to hear how your experiences helped you better to support your clients who do struggle with that.
Yeah. I think my experience was, although like one of the most painful things I had to go through in my life, but it's also a blessing because I'm able to recognize why my other clients are struggling and also be able to make them feel like they're not crazy. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but when I would do these weird behaviors with food, like eat in secret, or I wouldn't finish like certain serving sizes of food, or I had all these like rigid rules, I thought that was normal. I thought I was dedicated, but come to find out, I was struggling with a full-blown eating disorder and I didn't know. And I think eating disorders, they start out with small things and then they're not addressed and then they seem to manifest into something more. And for me as a coach, I never want to be a catalyst for someone's eating disorder. And I've had that experience before where I've hired a personal trainer and their plan was so restrictive and their support was not good at all that it did lead into part of another eating disorder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. This is like the truth. And a lot of people aren't willing to recognize or aren't able to recognize that they do have a problem or that something is wrong until it's so far gone, or maybe they hear other people talk about it. So I think it's great to advocate for it and address it. And as you know, that's like my favorite thing in the world. It's my bread and butter. And I think it needs to be happening in this space more. There has to be more light on it. So I love that you do that and you do help people to see that and develop a more healthy relationship with food as it comes to dieting or reverse dieting and getting to the stage or just having a lifestyle that they really love. And that brings me to a question that I'm going to be asking everybody, which is, what do you think makes a coach a good coach or a team a good team?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I think what makes a good coach, it's going to look different for everyone. Some people thrive on that tough love mentality and, hey, this is your plan, we're going to stick to it. Some people thrive on that, but other people thrive on another approach. And that's kind of the approach that I give of, hey, if you mess up, that's okay. No judgments here. We're just trying to help figure out why this happened and supporting that client. Allow yourself to be accessible to your clients. So for me, like my clients can reach out whenever they need me throughout the week, and they also have a Facebook community for support. People who don't have support are more likely to fail. So we have to make sure that we are accessible to our clients when they need help. And lastly, it's just going to be patience and understanding. Not everyone's going to progress at the same rate, and everybody's going to have their own challenges. So you can't expect one client to perform like another one. So you truly have to look at every single client of yours as an individual.
Yes, and I love that individual approach. And you said, you kind of gave us a little inside look at what people can expect if they work with you, to have that one-on-one connection every day, to be able to go in and have the community support as well. And you said that you've had your own experiences as an athlete because you are a competitor yourself. How else has that informed your ability to support, or maybe even informed your approach to coaching your clients?
So like, would this question be pertaining to how competing has helped me help my clients better?
Yeah, and like how your experience with coaches you've hired or worked with in the past has helped you to determine like your best approach in your coaching philosophy.
Gotcha. I've hired a lot of different coaches throughout my fitness journey, and it did start out pretty young. And I kind of like would get a good feeling if someone was working well with me, but I also had to address like what philosophies I wanted for coaching So like for myself, I wanted a macro approach, and I wanted someone that focused on traditional resistance training. I'm not a fan of doing plyos. I'm not a fan of running because of my past athletic, like gymnastics. Like my body has taken a beating, so I can't perform like that as much. So I needed someone that could really support the views that I have and what I believe in. But with every single coach, if I moved on from a coach, it wasn't any like hard feelings. It was more so I needed someone to help me with something further that they weren't currently helping me with. Or I just felt like we weren't a good match anymore. And that's okay. Sometimes you have to work with someone to recognize that they're great, but we're not great together. And that's okay.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's so cool that you've had that experience, because then when you're working with girls and they're like maybe moving on, or maybe they're approaching you from another coach, now you can take the approach they're looking for or best support them. And like you said, treat them like an individual, which it sounds like you really valued in your coaches. And something I think girls can use some support with too is wondering, like, when they are looking to hire a coach, what would you recommend that they maybe look out for, or what are some questions you wish potential clients would or wouldn't ask you to determine if it's going to be a good fit?
Yeah, a couple questions that I like for my clients to ask is, what I'll go over kind of like what I ask them in like a phone call. So I always try to get them on the phone because I want to hear your voice. I want to get to speak with you, because although like it's great to have this communication through email or even like Instagram DMs, I want to get you on the phone. I want to get to hear who you are, and it's easier to communicate that way. I always want to know why. Why do you want to start coaching? What are you looking in an online coaching program? What are your biggest struggles? Because I need to know these things in order to best help you. And lastly, I do go into my philosophies of coaching. So I tell my clients, hey, I take a macro-based approach. Is this something that you'd be comfortable with? Some people, yes, and some people it's a no, and that's okay. I just want to make sure that both of us are on the same page. But if you're going to, inquire on coaching and get that support, you have to understand what you're wanting to achieve from this program. Why did you reach out to this coach? Okay, like why do you think that you two are a good fit? The approach that you would like to take, and if you have no idea, tell them that I have no idea, and they can help guide you on what would be the best for you.
I think that's really important, like understanding the person you're about to work with, making sure they understand you. And I think that can get rid of a lot of those potential roadblocks that can sometimes come up in people's journey with a coach, where now they want to switch coach, or I wish, like there's always that I wish I had known before. And I like that you're addressing all those things up front, so there aren't too many questions about the actual philosophy or approach. And something that someone wanted me to ask on this series specifically was, how do you determine how far to push an athlete or a client?
It depends on their feedback. So I do have like levels where I won't take even like my competitors calorically. It's just what I feel like my ethics need to be as a coach. And with my passive disordered eating, I won't starve my clients. In a prep, we're going to have to push, but my lifestyle clients too, like I have a level where I won't go below. It just goes against what I believe in. And your health is my number one priority, and starving you isn't going to help you with your health. So I have kind of limits that I set myself, but also if we're talking about reverse dieting, a lot of women have these limiting beliefs of foods and all these fears that we have to work on overcoming. So you might think, oh my gosh, I cannot push past 2,200 calories. There's absolutely no way that I could ever eat more than this. But odds are you probably can. We just have to work on this negative relationship that you have with food, or maybe it's even body image issues that you're struggling with that aren't necessarily there, more like body dysmorphia, where you feel uncomfortable feeling full for the first time in your life because you're used to dieting. So it's a lot of just fears that we have to overcome in that direction. But obviously, each journey is a little bit different and every client's a little bit different. So some people in a prep, they want to push, they would do anything, but that's not necessarily what we should be doing. Just because they want to work like a workhorse doesn't mean we need to do that.
Right. It sounds like you're really prioritizing efficiency and the sustainability and the long-term benefit.
Yeah, totally. Because I don't want them to walk away from coaching being in a worse position, or I don't know. I just don't want anyone to develop a poor relationship with food, because I've been there before and it's not a good place to be. I'm trying to work on fixing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of probably the most important things in this industry that needs to change. And I think it's great that you're prioritizing making sure like the clients you work with come and leave better than they were found, really. And as you know, like that's something that is meaningful to me as well. And I love that. Like I said, I'll say it all the time, but I do love that you prioritize that and find ways to support your athletes in that. And you did mention you mentioned a few things that I'm going to be touching on, but one thing was some girls are really willing to like put that work in and be a workhorse. And I know there are girls who will do more than they're asked, right? Like, oh, you give them 20 minutes of cardio, maybe they're doing 40. So how do you personally monitor that or develop that relationship with your clients so that you're tracking, what's actually causing the results that they're getting?
Mm-hmm. I like what I call coach's intuition. So if something feels a little bit off, I like get this gut feeling about it. It's like bizarre. I don't even know why that happens. But if I feel like something's a little bit off, I do address it. And I do reply to all my clients through like video and audio messages. So they hear my voice, they can tell my tone, and it's coming from a concerned place. But let's say they are given like a set cardio and they might be going above and beyond. I see everything within this check-in document, and all of my clients have to go through what's called a client promise, which is kind of like a promise that they have to me to, show up for their check-ins and to be 100% honest with me. But if I feel like they're maybe doing more cardio, then I just will address it, or maybe we even hop on a call together to discuss it. I more so try to focus on the food. If I feel like they're under eating and they need extra accountability, I do get to the place where they can send me a daily log and it shows me their macros for the day and the foods that they ate if I feel like they're really struggling to eat enough.
Nice. I like that personal touch and approach to it, like really taking into consideration what it is they need. And that actually makes me wonder, just I'm going to branch off a little bit off of that. Like when you're peaking an athlete and you follow and you have them following a macro-based approach, do you think it's important to know what kinds of foods they were eating, from a macro perspective and maintain that consistency, or is it still it doesn't matter, just hit your macros?
About 4 weeks out, I'll tell my bikini competitors to take notes on anything that isn't digesting well, and just have that like personal journal for yourself. That way, as we get closer to peaking, we cut those foods out. So for example, broccoli is a great whole food, but it's not great on peak week for a lot of people and can cause a lot of gas and digestion issues. Even other foods too, like egg whites and dairy, sometimes that doesn't work for you leading into your peak week. I will say though, leading into peak and going up a macro based approach, I have my clients try to keep it as whole foods based as possible. And like after Wednesday, I don't even do dairy for my clients because I find that even that can cause some inflammation. So I'll have them kind of eliminate dairy, eliminate any carbonation, cut down on any sugar, alcohols, if that's causing any gut issues and bloating. So we try to focus primarily on whole foods, but leading into like the rest of their prep, that can be, that 90-10 rule, 90% whole foods, 10% fun.
Nice. Okay. And I appreciate you breaking that down because we actually haven't addressed that before on the show. So I was curious, like, what your thoughts were on it. And you brought up a good point about like making sure your clients have, like, they go through the client promise. And I remember you actually talking about that on one of your, well, a few, but on specifically one where you were interviewed on another podcast and you were going through like your coaching process and philosophy there. And now I would love to know, like, what do you actually feel is the difference between a good athlete and then like the phenomenal winning champion athlete?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good, I love all these questions. I'm like
Thank you.
excited. Um, a great athlete is someone who can apply what you're asking them to do. It's someone who can, kind of go through the motions and just follow a program. I think a great athlete is someone who asks questions. It's someone who, if you tell them to rest and recover, they do it. They go and they take that bath. They go get that extra hour of sleep. They go work on their stress management. If it's someone who just goes the extra mile and really applies themselves versus, hey, I'm just following my plan versus, okay, I'm following my plan. I'm taking my supplements. I'm sleeping. I'm watching my stress. I'm training really hard in the gym. It's someone who communicates too, because to be a great athlete, you have to communicate with your coach if you're struggling, if you have questions, or else you're not going to get the guidance that you need.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And do you feel that natural athletes have a chance at success in the NPC if they don't have the genetics? I know that's a pointed question, but it was recommended I ask.
Huh. I think you don't know your genetic potential usually for a while. Even women, I mean, I'm 25 and I don't think that I'll see my genetic potential until I'm like in my mid 30s. Age isn't a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. So you're not going to really know your genetic potential if you've only been doing this for like 5 years or less. Give yourself some time. But I think natural athletes can be super successful. I mean, I just had a posing client of mine turn pro in a natural federation, and her muscle density is insane. She almost looks like she's not natural, but she is. So you can achieve great things, but you really do have to be patient. And that's not to say that other people aren't going to have better genetics than yours. That's not anything that you can control. If someone has these like calf delts or these like amazing glutes or legs, you can't control that. All you can do is focus on becoming the best version of yourself.
Oh, that's beautiful. And how do you make your clients' hormone health a priority?
I do have them either order blood work through their physician or through a lab where they can, get those panels done for them. I find that a lab has been easier during, coronavirus because of hospitals, so you can get it done independently. And what happens when they run blood work is it goes through kind of like, think of it like a test chart, when you like fill in like A, B, C, D, it kind of will ding if one is wrong or one's a little bit off. And that's kind of nice for me to see. So I'll have a client just run blood work through there. And then if something's off, it depends on how off it is. If it's very off, for example, really high estrogen dominance or really low progesterone, I will have them, talk with their physician about that. But if it's just something little like, hey, your vitamin D is low, let's just supplement in with some vitamin D, or even iron, if we see the iron's low, that we can bring that to your physician too, and they can prescribe some, supplementation for you.
Yeah, I love that. I like that you're making that a priority for them as well. And this is kind of unrelated, but do you have any pet peeves with being a coach or within the industry as a whole?
I do have a few. I think a big one is when coaches don't talk about their clients taking anabolics and they're like, look at this amazing transformation. And from a coach's standpoint, I can tell the difference between a dense muscle and so dense and super vascular to where it would be very rare for a female to achieve that. And I think that it's not being transparent. And I just don't like that. It's fine if you want to post your client's transformation, but if they're taking anabolics, just own it. Just say that they are. And I think another issue is people ignoring full-blown eating disorders. I see the bodybuilding space and some of these girls that are like binging on food, and I hate it. I hate it so much. I see them, eating treat after treat after treat and like eating like they haven't ate in years. And it's just very dangerous. And you're walking a very fine line of developing something that could take over your whole life.
Yeah, that's for sure. It always bothers me backstage when it's like that's all girls are talking about or focused on,
I know.
or
I'm thinking about winning. I'm not thinking about
that, yeah,
like food.
exactly. And thank God, because we've done the inner work, and because we've done the inner work, we're able to focus on the bigger picture. And I think that that's missed a lot. Now, do you have any pet peeves when you're coaching your girls or anything like that bothers you in the coach-client relationship?
Um, Ghosting your coach.
Yeah.
I really don't like that. And again, that's a part of my client promise, where they understand that their check-ins, they have to show up for them, or if they can't, like, and they have to miss a day or a week, then they just email me and let me know. But ghosting your coach isn't going to be a good relationship. I mean, look at it. That's like standing someone up on a date. That's not going to be very nice. And you're paying for a service. So don't waste your money, get what you pay for, and don't ghost your coach. I think a lot of people do that because they're nervous that they did bad for the week and they don't want that negative judgment. But if you hired the coach for you, you shouldn't get that negative feedback if that's something that you fear so much. And I think the other thing is just sending check-ins super late, because I'm Eastern Standard Time. So if I get a check-in at 9 p.m., I'm like sleeping. So you're not going to get a response until the next day. And that's, I guess, my pet peeve, because I like to respond to my clients very quickly. So I feel bad that I'm making you wait so long, but I'm a grandma and I'm sleeping.
I love that. That's so funny. I feel you on that. I think it's like when you have a high standard for yourself as a coach, a mentor, or whatever it is you're doing, and someone's maybe not supporting you in meeting that standard, it kind of sucks because you're like, I want to be able to respond within like the hour, within X amount of time, and I can't do that if it's late. So I think that's great. And you kind of address this, or I guess I should say from a distance address this, but I'm just going to ask you straight. So if you have multiple top performing competitors, how are you prioritizing your focus, your time, your energy on all your clients if you're also preparing these girls who maybe are going for their pro cards or who have just become pro?
I do take on a limited amount of clients. So just because I could take someone on for like a prep doesn't mean I should. For my competitors, like that number is smaller than my lifestyle clients. I take a larger amount of lifestyle clients versus prep because I really want to pour all my attention into them. So that's usually never an issue because I don't like flood myself with work to where I can't manage my time. But I do work a lot. I work 6 days out of the week, and it's just prioritizing my time, and all of my client organization is there. So I don't know. I think what allows me to do that is just being organized and having a limited amount of clients that I take on.
Absolutely. Like you're pre-prepared for that. And so it's not even an issue you're dealing with. So last question of the, like, I guess I should say this round of kind of philosophy-based questions. What do you have to say to the people who say politics with teams plays a role in their clients' placing, or that all of this is just political?
I think it's something I used to believe in, to be honest, but I don't believe it anymore. And that's because of human nature. So if you see someone on stage and you see their face over and over and over and over again for the year, it's going to be human nature to have a preference for that person because you see them and you kind of develop a connection with them. And I see like these big teams and stuff, but when you're on stage, nobody really knows who you're working with. And I've been with a variety of different coaches, and I mean, if politics were a thing, then it would have worked, switching a team. I don't think it's a thing. And I think that people use that as a way of kind of like blaming, they're placing in a way. But I think it's more of just like a preference thing. Like if someone sees you making improvements, show after show after show, they're going to have a preference for you because they're going to see that you apply, that they're applying your feedback. Yeah, I don't really think that's a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I mean, there's a recognition that happens naturally, like you said, but also like I always think like how different we look at athlete meeting check-ins compared to on stage. Like sometimes it's crazy. I
Yeah.
don't recognize the same girls. So let's move on to the hypotheticals round. And I know this one can sometimes be tricky because things are very personal. And I know you take a very personalized approach, but I'm going to ask them and then whatever kind of feels best for you or however you want to take it is totally cool. So, first one, if I'm 1 year into competing and I actually have some overall wins under my belt and my goal is to get my pro card and I've never stepped on a national stage, I've been working with the same coach for a year. That whole year I've been qualified, but I was looking for a new approach. Why would I hire you?
You would hire me because I'm going to be able to support your off season just like I support your in season. And that's not going to be looked over. So if you're wanting to, step on stage and win that pro card, a pro winning physique is going to be made in your off season. And the prep is just kind of the come down from off season. So if you want someone to support you, to be there every single step of the way when it comes to even talking about hair and makeup and just getting ready for that specific day, then that's why you'd want to hire me. And I do think that off season gets overlooked by a lot of clients. It's almost like you're not competing, so you're not a priority. You're going to be a priority year round.
Love that. Okay, now if I'm 4 weeks out from a show and I keep saying to you that I don't feel ready, but you believe that I am, what's your response?
I do a couple things. I will take my clients' progress pictures, and this sounds funny, but I cut their head off so they can't see their face. And then I say, what do you think of this physique? And they'll be like, wow, she looks great. She looks amazing. And then I'll tell them, what if I told you that's you? The thing is we get really critical of ourselves and then we get those prep goggles. So if we can take our own personality and who we are out of it, odds are you're going to feel great. You're going to think that you look amazing. And I've done this even with lifestyle clients and I'm like, hey, that's you. And they're like, no, that's not me. I don't look like that. I'm like, yeah, but it is. They don't recognize that they've made that much progress. And I think lastly is I also encourage my clients to not follow anyone that's competing in the show and to limit their social media usage of watching IFBB pros or national competitors. I think it's important to just focus on you because that's all you can control.
Oh, yes, I love that. My coach believes the same thing. He actually mentioned that when he came on the last coach series. It's like social media can be a lot of girls' downfall, and I think that's some good insight too. And now let's say someone comes to you wanting to compete or they're considering competing. What's something you want them to know before they decide to commit to it?
So before you compete, we need to make sure that you have a good relationship with food. So I want to hear if they have any past issues with food at all. They need to have a strong why. So this goes further than I just want to get in the best shape of my life. That's not a good why. A good why to me is challenging yourself, maybe having an athletic past where you want that next challenge. And you need to have been consistent within your fitness journey already. So you should already be tracking macros or following a meal plan. You should already be lifting for years. You should already be doing these things. Prep should just be, taking it up a notch. So you should already be fit, but you should want to compete for the right reasons. And then it's really just going into that client's why, because if their why is wanting to get in the best shape of their life or just to prove it to themselves, I don't even like that as a why. I'm like, well, we can prove a lot of other things to yourself about prepping. Yeah. If you're an athlete, if you love performing, if you want to challenge yourself, then yeah, I think that prep could be a great option for you.
Love that. I totally agree with you. Like, I feel like it should already be part of the lifestyle and it shouldn't require this massive change. It should just be like, you know, a cherry on top, almost like a next progression, like you said, very natural progression. Now, let's say your client comes to you, and now this doesn't sound like it happens to you frequently, but let's say it did, and they say they've rebounded after their show and they just want to reverse and get back to normal. What would you do with them from a like physical, tangible coaching perspective in terms of like exercise protocol, nutrition protocol? Like, what's your first step with them?
So would this be someone that would want to do another show and like they rebounded really bad, or is it someone that like just finished their last show for their season?
How about we do someone who wants to, well, let's do someone who's gonna take time off before their next show.
Okay. If they rebounded, then this would be a place where I would actually bring up food, because they obviously are having really depleted leptin levels and their hunger is incredibly high, and everybody handles that differently. So we'll usually focus on even bumping protein up a little bit, but I do focus on those carbohydrates primarily and then fats a little bit, because I just want you to feel better, to kind of decrease that risk of overeating. If you're binge eating, that's also when I would recommend getting help with a therapist as well, so we can work all together as a team. But if it's just like overeating and you're just always feeling hungry, I do increase food significantly. And then I will also scale down on cardio. I think the last thing that you should do when you rebound is increase cardio and cut your calories, because that's just going to lead, it's like loading a gun. It's going to set you up for needing to overeat again, and then you're in the same place. So you're going to be better off eating more and then decreasing the frequency of these overeating bouts.
Yes, exactly. That's one of my personal pet peeves, is when I see coaches like reprimand their girls or be like, oh, you rebounded, or oh, you overate yesterday, let's cut your calories down, or remove this, do more. I'm like, can we focus on the like deeper issue here? And I like that you're doing that, and even, you know, from a physical and mental perspective. So last hypothetical, someone's physique is on point and they've been nailing everything in their plan. You know, they almost check the boxes of what you described earlier as the champion athlete, but the one thing they haven't been really focused on is their posing. They've been slacking and they haven't been practicing. Do you put them on stage?
If it's been addressed before, like if I've talked about their posing previously, like, hey, let's sign up for lessons, even if it's with another posing coach other than me. If I've told them it over and over again and they haven't done it, then yeah, I'll throw them on stage so they can get the feedback of, you need posing. So it's almost like, hey, I wasn't lying, like, we need posing. Your physique looks great, but you know, you could still do okay with like poor posing. I've seen it before, oddly, but you know, I think sometimes you have to learn your lesson if you're not like getting posing and you've been told to do it. If you have no idea though, like I will really just try to emphasize it at every single check-in of like, let's try this, let's try that, send me videos. I just try to make sure that they're prepared as much as possible. But again, with the whole communication, like you have to send me those videos. You have to tell me that like, hey, I need help here, because I'm not going to really know.
So true. I love that. And okay, now we're going to move into the rapid fire round. So this is going to be answered in one sentence or less, and then we can pick a few after, maybe like one or two to expand on that stood out to you that you're like, I really want to talk more about that. So first of all, waist trainers, yes or no?
No.
This one you covered, but if it fits your macros or meal plans.
Either works, but I prefer macros.
Fasted cardio?
Not necessary.
Water cutting?
Not necessary.
Okay, now this one is a little more lengthy. Steady state cardio or HIIT, specifically for fat loss without sacrificing fullness, especially in the glutes.
They both burn fat. Choose which one that you have more motivation to do.
And have you ever fired a client?
No.
And best supplements for competitors?
Creatine, protein, multivitamins. Those are like my top ones I can think of right now. I feel the pressure.
Well, that's it. You completed the rapid fire round. So, is there any that I asked you that you're like, I want to talk about that more?
I guess the firing a client, because I've never really been asked that before. It's I don't know, in any service industry, you're going to have clients who are harder to work with. It's almost like a hairstylist and like you always do their hair and you can't make them happy even though like you followed their picture to a T. And I've definitely had clients where they've been harder, but I look at it like a learning opportunity for myself. So although like I might want to fire my client, firing my client isn't going to help them at the end of the day. It's just going to hurt them. So although there may be more time and energy, it's another opportunity for me to overcome these challenges that I need to overcome as a coach to be better for them.
Love that. I've definitely been in those shoes before where it's like, it's good because this is showing me maybe gaps in my own system or my approach, or it's showing me more of what this person could be using support with, or maybe I can check in with other clients who are struggling with something they've brought up, or, oh, what is this revealing about me that I'm not prepared to like address, myself. And I think it's, like you said, a great learning opportunity, but also it's about putting that client first and recognizing what is going to be the best move for them. I know I've only ever fired clients that, it seemed like everything they shared with me, I could totally help them and support them. And then we start working together and a bunch of stuff surfaces where I'm like, I can't help you with this, that, or the other thing. We can focus on this, or you can go invest in someone else. And, but I feel like that's a little different energy than firing. That's more like requalifying, or like you said, going through that client promise.
Or yeah, like or referring out. Like if you've like
Mm-hmm.
relapsed in an eating disorder, you should be with someone else. You shouldn't be with me. It just depends on like what that person is going with. But if you're just challenging, I'm not gonna fire you.
Love that. Okay. Anything else you wanted to expand on from that?
Just supplements real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting into the competitor space, you do not need to take anabolics, and you need to do heavy research before you even think of doing that. So just because your coach offers them to you, like you can say no. And I see a lot of really young women who are under the age of even like 24 or less, getting offered to take steroids or even like illegal fat burners. You can say no. Just because they're your coach doesn't mean you have to do it. And you can be successful in the sport without taking any of that.
Hugs, not drugs.
That should be some merch that you do, Celeste.
That would be hilarious. Oh, I'm so glad you just empowered people listening, because it's like when you enter this sport, especially when you're young and you have that like desire to do really well, or you see other people who are young, 22, 23, 24, and they're Miss Bikini Olympia, or they're top competitors, or they're already, quotes, already turning pro, whatever. And if you start holding yourself to that standard as though, your stories are exactly the same, it's totally unrealistic and unfair. And I think it's easy to feel like whoever you're working with, or maybe your friends working with, is like the only person who knows how to get you where you want to go. But you've really given us some insight into there's many approaches. You don't have to do that, and really checking in with yourself and doing your own research is important too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that. And I appreciate you being willing to broach that subject as well, because I never feel comfortable talking about it with the athletes, but it's nice when the coaches can address it too and their thoughts on it. So is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think I should have, or that you'd like to address?
I think we just about covered everything, but I just want to let anyone, like any of our listeners, if you're looking to hire a coach, take your time with that process. Hop on the phone with them, get to know them, follow their content. And if you're unhappy in your service, it's okay to leave. Like, you don't have to feel bad about that decision. Overlook anything in case like you did have some sort of contract with them, which I'm not a huge fan of, like, bounding contracts for like a year. But if you're unhappy with your service, you should be allowed to leave, and that's okay. If that coach loses you as a client, then that's a learning lesson for them. And again, it's okay. I just can't emphasize that enough, because I've been intimidated by my coaches before when I was super young, and I was so scared to leave because I thought that it's going to hurt my placing at shows, or they're going to talk bad about me. But to be honest, if you have a crappy coach, then they don't care. Trust me.
Wow. I love that. That was so genuine and kind of you to share that, and even coming from your own personal experiences too. And I appreciate you shining light on that. And I want everyone to be able to connect with you, maybe even inquire about working with you in their hiring process as well. And I know we covered so many things, so I'd love if you could share how they could connect with you or find you.
Yeah, totally. Well, you guys can find me on Instagram at Nicole Ferrier Fitness. I have a TikTok as well, so if you're addicted to TikTok like I am, it's also Nicole Ferrier Fitness. Celeste talked about my podcast, so that's Beyond the Bikini. So if you like listening to my voice, you can hear more episodes there, and also go back and listen to the episodes that Celeste and I did together. And then if you're wanting to work with me, my website is just NicoleFerrierFitness.com, and you can apply to work with me there.
Perfect. So I'm going to make sure I put all of those links in the show notes, and you guys, I'll also link some of the episodes that I did on her podcast as well, like she mentioned. And then you guys will be able to find all that, as always, on celestial.fit/podcast. There's a category. I'm going to call this one Coaches Series. That way it's separate from the last one, and you guys can find it more easily. And Nicole will also have her own category. So you'll just scroll to the category section. You can find her name, and you'll be able to see all the episode timestamps, so you can go back to specific things. If you're like, wait, what did she say about fasted cardio? Wait, what did she say about natural athletes and genetics? Or what makes a good team? And you want to go back and revisit that. All of that will be timestamped for you in the notes section. And I want to say too, thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in. And I really hope you're enjoying this coaching series. Again, it was one of the best ones before, and I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts. So make sure you tag us on social media with your main takeaways from the episodes, or maybe new insights and considerations or follow-up questions, and we'd be happy to cover those as well. So thank you again, Nicole, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode.